I don't want to see a guy twerking in front of me. I'm 60 years old. Has nothing to do with my kids. I don't want to see it.
This is a citizen comments segment in Franklin, Tennessee. I think they were listening to citizens' objections or comments on a pride parade that was going to take place in the town not too long ago. As you can tell, it got completely unhinged, like to a ridiculous degree. Now, I want to talk about what got us to this point and where these people came from, what they believe. And I want to listen to some more of these comments from these people. I have a bunch of them. Before we listen to more of these comments, though, let me just, with no lead up, I'm going to present to you a reaction to integration in the 1950s. There's a black family named the Myers, I think, who were trying to move into a white neighborhood. Now, if you remember your history, before the Civil Rights Act, I think, of 1964, it was against the law for black people to live in the same neighborhood as white people. I think that's the act that ended segregation. Just listen to this old film from the 1950s of these people describing how they felt about it when the first black family moved into their area.
Myers served for 2.5 years in the Army.
Myers is the black guy that was moving in with his wife and 3 kids. He served in the Army, okay?
And was discharged as a staff sergeant. He works as a laboratory technician and is studying for a degree as an electrical engineer. His wife, Daisy, is a college graduate.
So they're fine, upstanding citizens is the point.
The Myers home is modestly furnished, and their late model family car was bought on time. There were several hundred who congregated on the street in front of the Myers house, and there were those among them who felt strongly enough to throw a rock through the picture window. Do you think a Negro family moving here will affect the community as a whole?
Sorry, yeah, there's some language in this, but I feel like it's important to listen for cultural context at the time. I don't feel like that's necessarily a bad word if it's used in its proper context. But so he asks if it will affect the community as a whole for this family to be in their vicinity.
Definitely.
In what way?
I think that, well, the property values will immediately go down if they are allowed to move in here in any number. But
oh, well, we wouldn't want your house to lose its value, right? So we'll continue living in a society with second-class citizens in it. That settles it.
But the whole trouble with this integration business is that in the end, it probably will end up with mixing socially. And you will have, well, I think their aim is mixed marriages and becoming equal with the whites.
The horror. You know what's really sad about this? The U.S. never went through a period of integration. We went through a period where segregation came to an end, and the U.S. government took some steps to force integration. Like, for example, there are old pictures and videos of the first black girl attending a white school with soldiers and police officers. They had to stand by her and walk with her from class to class lest she end up dead or beaten. That would be an example of integration. But we never really went through integration as a society. We just removed the rules for the most part, with few exceptions, and let what happened next happen.
Mixed marriages and becoming equal with the whites. But the only way they're going to do that is by education and by bettering themselves, not by pushing in the way they have here.
That's fascinating. So she believes that the black community or black people individually are inferior to whites by default. There's a reason we're watching this. Keep it in mind. Keep it in the back of your head.
But there are others who are for the Myers?
Yes, I've read about them.
For what reason, do you think, do they support the Myers?
Frankly, I don't know what reasons they can have for it.
Equal justice, living in an equal society. I mean, the fact that she doesn't see what's wrong with racism, tribalism, and hatred like this is deeply disturbing.
For it. If they are homeowners in Levittown, I don't see what reasons they can have for it.
some of the people are definitely against integration. And they have told my children that they have to marry.
Wow. Who told their children this? Who said this to the kids? Is she saying that the black family told her children that they have to marry black people? Is that what she's trying to communicate right now? There's a point to this. Just keep listening.
And my child doesn't even know what a is, but from the sound, it has scared them, and they have come home just crying. Mommy.
I bet. It's so hard to live in a society where everybody is equals, huh? That's tough. I get it.
Mommy, do I have to marry Negroes? And my answer in handling all the fears that children come in is that you can marry whomever you wish.
By the way, we both seem to be from below the Mason and Dixon line. Where are you from?
I come from Kentucky.
Of course she does. Of course, I lived in West Virginia, really close to the Kentucky border, so I knew people like this, 100%. I've said this before. I lived in a Sundown town. It's a town where black people are really not welcome, and if they come, they better be gone by sundown, or something's going to be done about it, basically. I've mentioned this before, in fact, recently, but there was a KKK pamphlet thrown at my door, not just mine, everybody all down the street, in my town. The Sundown town I'm talking about. The KKK drives down the streets and throws a bag with rice in it and a pamphlet at every door. Now, this pamphlet specifically was an anti-Muslim pamphlet. I've gone through it. I'm not going to go through it right now, but generally the idea is Islam is evil and it's trying to overtake Christianity, blah, 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 you know, all that garbage. That's the kind of town I lived in. Not by choice, by the way. I mean, I left when I finally could. And that's the kind of town that this woman seems to be from. But unfortunately, it was just about every town back in the 50s that was like this. You know how many people were in the town that she lived in at the time? This study was being done in Levittown, Pennsylvania, I believe. And it had 60,000 people. 60,000 people in this town. That's not tiny.
I have found several colored people that I have enjoyed their friendship. I would not let that determine whether I become friend to them by their color.
And right there is the reason why it's such a joke when you hear somebody say, I have black friends. I have gay friends. I know gay people. I'm close with them. I don't hate gay people. I don't hate black people. I just don't think that they're equal to everybody else. They shouldn't have the same rights as everybody else. That's all.
Of their skin.
Have you heard any rumors?
I had heard several rumors, of which that I have just taken as rumors go. But the one that bothered me most was the fact that the Myers family...
Wait, she says she took them as far as rumors go, which means you shouldn't trust them at all. She's repeating them here. Okay, what's the rumor about the Myers family?
The one that bothered me most was the fact that the Myers family has moved in to several all-white sections and trying to be the first colored family to move in, to start the other ones to come in, that they have done this before. Now,
So she's basically ascribing nefarious motives to them, saying they're setting out to ruin people's lives by living near them. That's insane.
Now, I believe that if they do come here to cause trouble, then I'm against what they're doing, their principle. But if they're just trying to find a better place to live and to bring up their children, then I'm for them.
Never before in our house was anything mentioned, pro or con, about colored people.
No, okay, this is an important part. You remember a minute ago, the last woman said her children were told that they would have to marry black people, right? And she explained to her children that they could be told, they could marry whoever they want. Now, this woman is saying our children have mostly been divorced from the situation. Okay? Keep listening.
Because I feel that they have to be in contact with them to a certain extent, and why should their minds be prejudiced? But since they have moved here, they have heard remarks.
It's fascinating that this woman believes herself to not be prejudice, right? She thinks that she is not racist. Genuinely, I believe this. I think she really believes it in her heart. She's not racist. She very obviously is.
And, well, I'm afraid that they are going to dislike the idea.
So the children have heard remarks. They've heard things around from the family members. Now, here's where this ties back into this group of people at this citizen comments thing happening in Franklin, Tennessee. This happened in the 1950s, right? That was how long ago? Say 1953, what is that, 70 years roughly, give or take? Somewhere in there? Listen to what this guy says again. Early April 2023 at this citizens comments thing in Franklin, Tennessee.
I don't want to see a guy twerking in front of me. I'm 60 years old.
60 years old, you say? Interesting. This guy and the other people at these comment sections are the children in this film here. These are the people that were there while their parents are freaking out and losing their minds that a black family is moving into the community. These are the people that freaked out and spread rumors and threw rocks through their windows. These people are the children that were there to witness it. And now we have them up here doing a comment section saying, I'm not racist. I'm not racist. I've never been racist. That's just not who I am. But yeah, I don't want to see what the gay community is doing. I don't even want to see a gay person. I don't want them as part of my community. I don't want them around at all.
I don't want to see a guy twerking in front of me.
I don't know when he's been in that position where he would see that, but okay. I've never seen that. And I'm like, I'm as close to the gay community as you get without actually being gay.
I'm 60 years old. Has nothing to do with my kids. I don't want to see it.
So I don't care who you date. This is about opposing a very dark political movement.
Find a private venue or a safe space that you say you desire.
See, this is the whole bit. This is how it works. She says, find a safe space, find a venue you're comfortable in, not the public. They're talking about a pride parade going through town, right? The problem is, we've seen this exact thing play out before. We know how this ends. When pride parades are brought to an end, when people aren't allowed to move into the community, the people opposing this group, the black community, the gay community, whoever it happens to be, the trans community, the people opposing them will move the line and find a new thing to complain about every single time. We don't have to wonder what happens next. We have the benefit of hindsight.
You can go to the library, you can go to my church, I don't care. Just stay out of the public venues with what you're trying to advertise.
What are they trying to advertise exactly? What's being advertised? That it's okay to be gay or that they are gay? Now, there is a kind of an internal debate within the gay community and within allies communities. Is it okay to represent kink at pride parades? And the ultimate consensus is no, you shouldn't be doing that. In fact, I don't know of any pride parades that represent kink, that come in like leather suits or whatever, because everybody is aware that kids are going to be there, because 14, 15-year-old kids have probably already known that they're gay for a while at that point. And bringing sexualized stuff around kids is not okay. So by and large, everybody agrees that you really shouldn't involve kink at Pride. They're not complaining about that. They're complaining about people being gay, which is made evident by the very next comment.
God's word is clear that homosexuality is a sin.
Do we or do we not want sex on display in a public park here in Franklin, Tennessee?
Nobody is displaying sex at a public park in Tennessee. They're displaying the fact that they're gay. They're very different. You ever seen a movie where, an 8-year-old boy is interested in an 8-year-old girl and he's chasing after her and he's giving her flowers and giving her things and blah, blah, blah? That's pretty common. It's a common movie trope or even TV trope. That happens all the time in film. Why is that okay, but not a boy and a boy okay. The only differentiating factor between the two is the fact that one is gay and one is straight. When I see an 8-year-old boy giving an 8-year-old girl flowers, I don't think to myself, they're grooming children to be straight. That doesn't even cross my mind. Ultimately, the problem is they believe the Bible says that homosexuality is wrong. That's it. There is no deeper anything to it. They just don't like the fact that people are gay. And they try to cover it up and hide it and smooth it over exactly the same way that the people did back in the 1950s about black people integrating with white people. They've always got a reason for why this shouldn't happen. And when they get their way, when they bring society a few steps back, they move the goalposts to match. Every single time.
On display in a public park here in Franklin, Tennessee.
It's only a matter of time before it turns out into what you would see in other major cities.
Wait, what's happening in other major cities? I live in New York City. It's fantastic here. What are they talking about? I don't understand. This is another thing about Republicans. They absolutely love to claim that New York City is like a liberal hellscape that is just destroyed. It's been ravaged by BLM protesters. No. New York City is perfectly fine. In fact, it is the safest city that I have ever lived in. I've never felt safer walking down the streets of New York City. And I'm talking anywhere in New York City, in Manhattan, anywhere in Manhattan. I guess 125th Street is a little bit dicey, but just keep your eyes peeled and keep on walking and doing your thing and you're fine. Every town has its issues. New York City is the best place I've ever lived. Anyway, so yeah, she's all freaked out about big cities apparently, okay?
Before it turns out into what you would see in other major cities.
We are at an inflection point in this city's history and in this nation's history where pronouns are being shoved down our throats.
As if pronouns have never been used up until this moment in human history. Oh my God.
I'm sure you don't want to see me in a bondage gear outfit. I wouldn't look very good.
Okay, he's implying, God, what the... Okay, he's implying that, there are bondage gear outfits at pride parades. That's simply false. By and large, pride parades are child inclusive, and that excludes necessarily kink-related things like that. So, just completely made up. You know what? If there is that stuff, as one of the closest allies to the LGBT community, I would oppose that. So, there you go.
I also want to say this lie of being hated, gay community that's here, we love you. We don't hate you. I have friends that are gay. I grew up being surrounded by gay community in Southern.
Yeah, I bet. 100%. You know what? I feel like I've heard this before. This is really familiar. Where have I heard this before?
I have found several colored people that I have enjoyed their friendship. I would not let that determine whether I become friend to them by their color.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm telling you, these tactics, these ideas, these are all like recycled through the decades. These people's parents that we're listening to right now, these people right here, their parents were making these exact same arguments for segregation in the 1950s. The same arguments, verbatim. But it gets even worse, if you can believe it. There's even more to this story. Okay, there was a woman there. This one right here on screen, if you can see her. If you're listening, then she's some blonde woman. Anyway, before I play this, let me give a little bit of lead up because she's about to spout a bunch of propaganda, and I need to explain the real situation so that you can juxtapose her description of it with the actual situation. Okay, there's a school. It was called Francis Parker School. Okay, it's a private school. Tuition is $52,000 a year. Lot of money. You basically got to be rich to go to a school like this, right? Well, in standard public schools, they have these sex ed classes. In good public schools, they have sex ed classes that are not abstinence only, right? These sex ed classes will explain to you that condom use is important, explain what an STD is and how to avoid it and things like that. I personally was exempted from sex ed classes because my parents wanted me to get my education on it from Jehovah's Witnesses, but that's neither here nor there. I understand that there's, on occasion, a banana involved. I don't know. I have no idea. Anyway, tell me your experiences with it in the comments. Anyways, this school, Francis Parker School, I think it's Francis Parker High School. It's a high school specifically. So we're talking basically 15 to 18-year-old kids, right? Probably already sexually active. And if they're not, then they know by this point in their life whether they're gay or straight or trans or whatever. Almost certainly, right? Well, this Francis Parker School held an elective, optional, additional sex ed class for members of the LGBT community. If they chose, they could sign up for it to learn about specific things that are relevant to the LGBT community. Like HIV, when it started back in the 80s, was spreading around the LGBT community specifically. They were suffering the worst from its effects. So it focuses in on how to stay safe and how to use certain types of toys and things like that in a safe way. Again, optional. So now, let's listen to this woman's description of the same situation. Again, early April 2023.
It started out as Pride coming in, and I thought everything would be okay. I was totally fine with them having and doing what they wanted under the laws. And it ended with a rainbow room where 8 to 12-year-old kids were given plugs until. And
I'm sorry, what? 8 to 12-year-old kids? No, they were high school-aged kids. They're 15 to 18, kids that are probably already sexually active. And rainbow room? Where did this come from? What's she even talking about? The reason I know that this is what she's talking about is because libs of TikTok, Chaya Raychik, and Project Veritas started passing around this heavily edited video from Francis Parker High School where Veritas went in and deceived the guy, tricked him into saying a bunch of stuff, and then edited, all this stuff together and clipped it out and twisted it around and made it sound like it was something completely different than what it actually was. It was absurd. But that's what she's referencing. Even the Project Veritas video didn't stretch it this much. See, this is how it works. You start with a reasonably mundane, trivial, normal thing, an additional sex ed class that students can take if they choose. You step that up by heavily editing and deceitfully asking questions and spreading that out to social media, and then you twist it even more from that point. Every step along the way, it gets distorted and warped even more. And we're looking at the final product of that distortion with this woman talking about rainbow rooms, 8 to 12-year-olds. What is she even talking about? This makes zero sense. At this point, there's a kernel of truth. At this point, I'm comfortable saying this is completely made up.
A room where 8 to 12-year-old kids were given plugs and
she's pretending to gag. This isn't even real. She fabricated this. This is coming out of her own head. This should tell you something about where her head is at, that she would come up with something this depraved. What is wrong with people? Seriously.
Trained.
They're trained? No, they're not trained. No more than a kid learning how to use a condom on a banana in sex ed class is trained. It's ridiculous, dude. Seriously. She's a joke. This whole thing is a joke.
Trained. They just got a city grant for $650,000 to be able to do more training on the children.
More training on the children.
It was horrendous. I have asked my friends there if it's getting any better. Every single one of them are leaving. And
look, if this actually happened to some kid, especially if it was like a friend of hers, there would be lawsuits out the wazoo. There is no way in hell this would ever stand in a court of law. Nobody, left or right, would ever stand for this. This isn't what's happening. This is fabricated nonsense formed out of her own imagination. And she's, you remember why she's here. Remember why she's here. She is here to speak out against a pride parade. a lawful demonstration under the First Amendment. She's trying to silence people's First Amendment rights to peaceful protest, to speak their mind. It's supposed to be a core American value. And she's using this fake story to bludgeon people. This is how it works. They make up a fake story about kids being attacked and use it as the pretext to censor people. Real censorship, not fabricated fake persecution complex censorship. Real censorship. Real prevention from speaking your mind at the hand of the government is what she's shooting for right now. And she's pretending to cry and fake vomit to get her point across so that she won't have to see gay people walk through her neighborhood.
If it's getting any better, every single one of them are leaving. And it is a very good tax base. These conservatives are good tax base people.
Yeah, I don't know what that has to do with anything.
It was absolutely horrible to watch.
What was horrible to watch? What? What did you see? Show me. Give me the clip. Let's see it. There is no clip. There is no video of this. There's no audio. There's no nothing. It's fake. She made it up so that she could take people's rights away. Does it get more depraved than this?
You think that you're doing things based on laws, but you are doing things and you are letting Satan in. He will not take an inch. I promise you.
Thank
he will
for your
take everything
comments.
and it
Next,
will not stop.
please.
It doesn't stop.
Your mom takes an inch. So, does this sound familiar?
Some of the people are definitely against integration. And they have told my children that they have to marry
the same way that this woman made up a story about her children being forced to marry black people. Here we have this woman making up a story about children being forced to, I don't know, be exposed to this stuff when they're not. The political right, conservatives, have always used children as a pretext to attack minority groups every time without fail. And again, this woman is the child of this generation right here. I don't know if this woman with the blonde hair at this community meeting talking about rainbow rooms, I don't know if she's, I don't know if she grew up in a racist household. I don't know if she's exposed to these conversations from the 1950s about black people oppressing everybody around them. I don't know. But she's using the same arguments, and it's a little uncanny for me. Since I'm thinking about it, while I have you here, let me just show you what happens when people get their rights taken away.
I don't agree with the moderator nor Reverend Robinson that we want some kind of agreement. We want agreement by which we can live or die. You choose. If you won't listen to me when I make an appeal for the Negroes because you have no concern for the Negroes, listen to me when I make an appeal for America. You claim you love America. Well, we love America. But you are driving us back and you are making a Samson out of us, and we are going to pull down the pillars. Should you try to pretend that I'm crazy because I want America to be saved? And then you think we have no right to ask for something? Is it too much to ask you to grant us human dignity? Should we be put down and shot to death for this request? If so, you can aim your guns. What the hell do you think we care about dying if you're going to deny us the right to live?
Throughout history, white majority groups have oppressed minorities every time. This guy right here, if you're watching and not listening, this guy right here is the target of this conversation right now. But without fail, it's always been, in America at the very least, white men taking people's rights away and oppressing them. When you do this enough, people fight back. They don't like having their rights taken away, and they recognize the disparity.
You know, this revolution is filled with so many ironies, really. First you tell us that it is manly to keep your word. All right? If you are a man, you keep your word. And now all that the black people in this country are demanding, and even the black people in the whole world are demanding, is that you keep your word. You told us we were free. Well, then show us that we're free. You told us that there is justice, equality for all in this country. Well, then stick to your word and let us see the justice and equality for all.
At this moment in history, black people were being murdered in the streets in the South and, in the North. Not as commonly, but Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, all over the place. They were being murdered in the streets. They weren't allowed to just live.
Or else admit to us that you're not a man, you're a worm, you're afraid of us, you're afraid to give us equal stand. You're afraid that if you give us equal ground, that we will match you and we will override you. And if that's what you're afraid of us, then tell us that just what you're afraid of. But don't keep hiding it from us and holding this up to us, and every time we ask you for something, you give us a little bit of something, and it's all tokenism. We don't want tokenism. And there are most black men in this world that don't want charity. And yet still every time we ask you for something, you give us a little piece, a little piece. You're playing games with us. We're not children.
All they wanted was dignity, equality, and justice. Everybody in the United States is entitled to those things. It is our birthright as human beings to have dignity and justice in the United States. And somehow, minority groups keep ending up on the other end. They keep having their rights taken. They keep being sentenced longer than their white counterparts or their straight counterparts or whatever. They keep getting attacked. We keep getting people going to citizen comment meetings, making things up about them and using it as a pretext to take away their civil rights, their right to peacefully protest, to peacefully demonstrate. It's not even a protest, it's a demonstration. These people are doing everything they can to silence voices who are just trying to peacefully demonstrate. It is a tale as old as time. It's been happening since the birth of the country. People have been oppressing minorities like this. And what's sad is they keep using the same tactics over and over again. Let me know what you think about it in the comments.